Society is a complex notion. It's how we organize our communities, how we share opportunities and threats, and how we define who we are. It's a reflection of our values. In Asia, the societies are more communal, more collaborative, and cooperative than other parts of the world. There are thousands of years of trade and cultural links to build upon. This is why ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and the AEC, the Asian Economic Community, make sense. They reflect on Asian belief in the power of sharing and connectedness.
There are many questions about ASEAN, but ASEAN will change the world. This is exciting.
ASEAN is a collection of 10 member states in Southeast Asia. It's the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, beginning with Brunei, Cambodia, Myanmar, Laos, Malaysia, Thailand, Vietnam, Singapore, Indonesia, the Philippines, plus 3.
This is the nature of Asian society. Cooperation is favored over confrontation. Sadly, this is something the West hasn't quite mastered.
We are working on a community for the region by the year 2015. Combined GDP is 2 trillion. We are trading with the world about 2 trillion plus, and the population is 600 million. So it's sizable, and we are major trading partners and investment destinations for many countries, many dialogue partners, including the EU, the US, Japan, China, Korea, Australia.
We are bound together by being in the same region, and now we're going to cooperate together by having less regulation when it comes to labor, so that people and goods can move more freely. So I think that this is the best. I mean, and we won't share a currency, so why not?
But there are many questions about ASEAN.
ASEAN really is an attempt by these 10 Asian nations to really come together. And really they have. But the reality is that ASEAN has to do so much more to really come together economically, culturally, and politically. One of the things that ASEAN is doing to its great credit is trying to create an ASEAN economic community. You know, in the next 2 years, these nations will really have to be thinking through, can they really work together? Can they work together politically? Can they work together culturally? Can they work together economically?
The strength of ASEAN in the past is that they were united in economic objectives of prosperity. The weakness of the ASEAN group is precisely that they are so diverse. You have small countries, you have bigger countries. You have countries which have very low incomes. You have countries which are middle to high, and even high incomes like Singapore. You have countries which are aligned very much with what I call Western beliefs and cultures and values. And you have others who I would call much more regional, and some I would say even much more sympathetic to the Chinese views of the region and the world. So you have this tremendous diversity. And because of this diversity, ASEAN has also tried to be what I would call relatively neutral. They've never tried to force anyone to take a position. Now that principle of neutrality, of impartiality, also means that ASEAN has a very difficult time dealing with contentious issues where there isn't a general uniform agreement. And many of these, what I call politically tinged or economically politically tinged issues, it's going to be very hard to get a unanimous view. So I think ASEAN does have this problem in being able to take a strong position on some of the more contentious issues. And many of these involve the role of China in the region. And that's why I think this kind of interplay is going to be stalemated for a while.
Korea has, of course, these set of free trade agreements with the United States, with the EU, and of course ASEAN, which is the major association of economies in this area. That doesn't only help other industries, but also the tourism, MICE industry in particular also. Not so much because of restrictions that were there before that have been taken away or so, but because tourism in itself, as the economy kind of develops, becomes a more important sector for people. As people have more wealth and have more money to spend and time to spend, they tend to do more tourism. And that's definitely true in all of the Asian countries.
Our leaders need to work together.
And this means governments in Asia and in the West. Remember what we said earlier, if Asia is an unstoppable force, why would you try to get in the way? It only makes sense to jump on board and use this momentum to your own advantage.
You know, I think ASEAN as a region really has extraordinary economic potential, both for themselves and for all the nations that would like to partner with them. From the United States perspective, we really think about this realistically. Southeast Asia is going to form, once they become an economic community in a few years, an extraordinarily large market. They are going to have citizens who are increasingly able and ready as they grow economically to purchase American goods, American services, to travel to America.
I think they welcome what I call a stronger or more enhanced U.S. presence. It gives them a comfort blanket. It creates a balance. It allows potential for more neutrality. And many would also say it's not that we don't think China's rising is good for the region, or that China rising means it shouldn't have some kind of a greater role in the region than it used to have. So I think a greater U.S. presence in a balanced role, recognition that that role must recognize that China is a rising power and therefore needs to figure out what that means, is something that everyone welcomes.
Japan's role, trying to promote this free trade area of Asia Pacific as a whole, I think would be one we would like to do with the United States together as an important partner of rulemaking in this area.
The United States has never left Asia to begin with, right? It's been always here. The fact that the United States has been paying much more attention on the Middle East does not make us say that the United States left this country or this region for that matter. I think that what the United States is going to do for the next 3 to 5 years to strengthen what is already strong U.S.-Japan relation in order to check and balance rising China. On the other hand, the United States will be pretty much strengthening its relationship with South Korea as well. But here is the problem though. Because China is the largest trading partner both to Japan and South Korea. So from the Chinese vintage point of view, they might say this, you're making money from us, but you're still treating like a threat. So then Japan and South Korea has this problem. But from Pyongyang's point of view, it is the only option to bring the United States back to the table for negotiation.
Problems do exist, but are there solutions? Coming up, we're going to see why this is Asia's century and if they are ready.